Hello, today I'll be showing you how to use the small 3-pin connector that comes with the Roco 10775 and other turnout decoders. I've seen many times where the wires are soldered onto the decoder board itself instead of using this connector. This is fine if you want that permanent connection, but for troubleshooting purposes, having a connector that you can unplug is definitely preferable. The Roco instructions don't even mention this connector or how it is to be used. I did find that the connector number is 10603, but the instructions that come with it are designed to be used with Roco's own 10623 ribbon cable. After some trial and error, I found that the right gauge wire to use for this to make it work is 22 gauge. I had a roll of 22 gauge solid core wire from another project, so I can use that without any problem. I also found that these jumpers that are used with breadboard projects are also 22 gauge. So if you have those laying around and want to experiment with what I'm doing here, this is one option if you don't have the roll of wire ready to go. I adapted the original instructions to allow me to use flexible ribbon cable with a solid core at the end to insert into the connector and make it work. I used 4-wire RGB ribbon cable, which is widely available to use with home LED lighting. I removed the black strand, which you can always use somewhere else, and then I used the RGB, red, green, and blue as my 3-wire ribbon cable. We're going to start by stripping the 22 gauge solid core wire and cutting 1 1/8" or about 28 millimeter of it 3 times. So I've got my wire cutter / strippers. And let's remove a little bit of the insulation to get started. And so we're going to cut it 1 1/8 inches, which is right around where the insulation is. Right there. We're going to do that 3 times. We're going to remove the insulation here. 1 1/8 right around there. And then one more time. Is that enough? One more. And we're going to cut that 1 1/8 inches. So now we have 3 of the strands and we're ready to go. I am then going to take my ribbon cable and cut about 1/4 inch or 5 millimeter, rather 1/4 inch or 5 millimeter strip at the end of it off. Which will leave it like this. We're going to solder each solid core wire up to the insulation on the ribbon cable, just like this. That's 1. That's 2. And 1 more. And 3. So in the end it's going to look like that. I'm then going to use a 1.5 millimeter diameter shrink tube. We're going to cut that about 1/2 inch or approximately 1 centimeter. Not that important what length it is. It's not even that necessary. I just want to make sure that there's no possibility of contact inside. And we're going to slide it on there pretty much up to the solder joint like that. You don't want to extend it too far because then it's going to cause interference with the connector housing. So just like that, we shrink it down. All right, now we're ready to insert these wires into the connector and make what's going to become our terminal. So you have these, let me see if I can point that out here. You have these 3 holes on the bottom, and then you have the grooves on top which are going to end up being where the wire lays in and make the actual contact with the circuit board. So we need to insert these wires into those connectors, if I can show that properly, right there. So we're going to start with one. The color combination doesn't really matter. That's two, not yet, two, and then three. And this is pretty much at the stage where you would be if you had the Roco wire yourself. We're going to slide it in right up to the shrink tube. So it will look like this. And now we're going to fold them over. And it's going to look something like this. The other side like that. And that's it. Let's take one last look at the wire leads to make sure that they are sitting in their channel. That looks good. That looks good. I found that it sometimes can be difficult to plug the connector onto the 10775 circuit board. So I always make sure that I squeeze down on these wires to make sure they're fully seated. It makes a big difference when the connector slides on easily as opposed to trying to push it on and you're afraid something's going to break. The connector only goes together one way. We have the tab right there and we have the accompanying hole right there. There's also an offset right there that shows you which way the connector goes. And so we're going to slide the housing over it now, all the way to the end, like that. And that's it. That's your connector ready to go. So we now have the Roco connector with flexible wire for your model railroad. I hope this video is of use to somebody out there. I wish you much fun with your model railroad. Thank you for watching, and until next time. Bye-bye.